Hi, today we're working on this PC that when the Windows boots it completely hangs. The PC starts up okay, it posts and does the power on self check. Starting Windows. Loads up the Windows icon and it hangs there. You can leave it on for 2 hours, it will not move. Computer has completely crashed. So if your computer is doing something similar to this, I'm going to take you through the steps that I did to troubleshoot this problem and how I eventually solved this issue. Okay, so let's start with looking inside the case. Okay, the first step would be to just reset the BIOS. You can remove the battery, unplug it, and there is a jumper on the motherboard that you can short out to clear the BIOS, or if you just leave it unplugged for 20 minutes it will reset the BIOS. I did do that in this case. It did not make any change. After that, what you would do is just unplug any unnecessary add-in cards, CD drives or whatever. So this particular one has 3 sticks of RAM, 2 GB, 1 GB, 1 GB. So what we did was we just removed 2 of the 3 and tried to restart it and see if there was any difference. There was no difference. We swapped that one for one of the other 2, just in case it was that RAM that was giving the problem, and there was no difference. We swapped out the graphics card. We just plugged in just a generic graphics card that I know is working, and still no difference. And finally I replaced I tried with a different power supply unit, still no difference. Okay. Next we went on to the hard drives. A different hard drive, exactly the same problem, and with no hard drive in the computer, just booting off a Linux CD, boot this puppy Linux, even the Linux was hanging. So after going through all those steps, what was left actually was just looking at the motherboard. So the next step was to check the BIOS version and then download the latest BIOS version and do an update. We did that with a floppy disk and booting through an MS-DOS startup disk. After we did the BIOS update, still had the same problem. Okay, so those were all the steps that we went through, and just before I was actually just going to go ahead and replace this motherboard, but being a socket 775, it's a little bit difficult to get my hands on. This was eventually the fix. Okay, so let me just power on again. Okay, let's just go into the BIOS. Okay, so in the BIOS settings I went to the integrated peripherals, and here you have all your settings for your IDE controllers and SATA controllers, and Auxiliary codec, which is your onboard audio, and the onboard LAN. I disabled one at a time, and I came across the onboard LAN, which let's just disable that. Save and exit. So There you go, successful boot. So all we need to do now is just leave that disabled, and we've got our hands on just a LAN adapter, a couple of dollars. We'll plug that into I plugged it into the PCI slot, you can see down there. So disable the onboard LAN, the network card, replace it with a PCI LAN adapter, and this computer is back on the road. Remember, there's always a fix, and thanks for watching.